Elizabeth Warren, and I've somehow seemed to mention her in my monologues over the last 2 days a number of times, is being challenged for her Senate seat by a real Indian running against a fake Indian. And now you're all going, what did you just say, Webb? No, I'm not being politically correct. It is actually part of social media and what was used by Shiva Ayyadurai, who joins me now, an American Indian scientist running for Senate in Massachusetts. The founders of America were blacksmiths, engineers, architects, entrepreneurs, scientists. They worked for a living. They produced their labor, products, and services to help other citizens. And that is the opening salvo by the aforementioned, and now joining me, Shiva Ayyadurai. Great to have you on the show. I've been looking forward to this.
Hey, Dave, great to be here. Love your show.
Well, thank you. And I got to tell you, I mean, I use the quip that you used. I think a little humor in life is a great way to get people's attention and a reality in that, because you yourself are the American story. Let's talk about you for a minute, how your story came to be.
Well, David, my story is not that different than most of, Americans who went through the whole journey of immigration to America, education, and then being a part of the American dream, contributing and innovating and creating. I'm part of that same journey, Dave. I guess my journey began in India as a 7-year-old kid. I came here with my parents. We were part of what was called a caste system of India, where we were considered the lower caste, untouchables or deplorables. So when we came here, it was a big fortune for us. And I went through the public school system of New Jersey, some of the poorest school systems, some of the wealthiest, but all public school systems. And as a kid, I invented the first email system as a 14-year-old kid because I had this incredible opportunity that only America could afford with a great mentor, great dedicated school teachers, and my loving parents, where I was given this challenge. If you remember in the old days, we had the inbox, outbox folders in the old office mail system. I converted that to the electronic form, called it email, and then got the first U.S. copyright. Came to MIT, Dave, and then I did 4 degrees, including my PhD at MIT. And then I started 7 companies and was able to give back lots of jobs in Massachusetts. And I think that's really the American journey. And I think, as you said earlier, the founders of this country were everyday people. They weren't, career politicians. And they never intended for us to have career politicians. And that's why I'm in this race, because I believe I want to reset what America was about. It was about everyday people being citizen servants, and then going back to the farm. And what we've created now is a political class, as Trump calls it, a swamp. And these people think, we owe them everything, and they forget who they're serving.
My guest is
Elizabeth Warren.
My guest, Shiva Ayyadurai, who is running against Elizabeth Warren in Massachusetts. I wanted that bio told to the audience from your words and your experience, because it contrasts sharply with the experience of Elizabeth Warren and what she proposes. I've read some of her papers. This is someone who claims the mantle not only of Senate, as she was duly elected, but of educator. And she has written about government control of your retirement, government deciding what your worth is when you reach that part in life where you step out of the workforce and want to go to your retirement, for example. And her policies are the very policies that have failed all over the world. The socialist policies don't work. Sharp contrast to your work, your parents, your talent, your innovation, and moving yourself forward at a top university and then into business. To the person out there, whether it be in Fitchburg, Springfield, Worcester, somewhere in between, or maybe on the South Shore of Boston, what do you say to them? Or maybe even up along Route 128 in the Silicon East back in the 90s with Data General and other corporations that eventually had tough times. What do you say to them about reviving their economy and their story to give them their opportunity?
I think the biggest thing that we have to remember is, Massachusetts presents itself as a mecca of education, but the reality is the swamp in Massachusetts has failed miserably in delivering on education here. We have, for every 17 job openings, Dave, that are skilled job openings, there's only one person skilled to take that on. We don't produce enough skilled people anymore. And so it's not an issue of raising or lowering taxes. Obviously, anyone will let you know. Obviously, you want to have lower taxes because it's incentivizing to business. But the reality is we don't have enough skilled labor. And this is fundamentally the problem. So we're not preparing the people in Massachusetts for the 21st century. Yet we have a lot of foreign students who come here, immigrants who come here, and they take advantage of MIT, Harvard, that whole east of 495, and then they leave or they do stuff. But the reality is the indigenous people of Massachusetts citizens are not being trained for the 21st century because the politicians themselves, they've never created jobs. They don't know how to solve math problems or physics problems or science. So they've put this on the back burner. And the reality is we're suffering because of that, because non-engineers, non-creators, non-workers have been running our country. And that problem needs to be addressed. Yeah, I think the GOP establishment has really no interest in beating Elizabeth Warren. What they want to do is they want to retain Charlie Baker's position as a never-Trumper governor who's a squishy Republican, as they call him. And that's really their number one goal. And I think their intention is to raise as much money as they can for their Republican coffers, not to beat Warren, but to use the anti-Warren sentiment just to essentially raise money for themselves for other purposes. And I don't think they really have any intention of beating Warren, because the kind of candidates that they're tossing up, these are people who are in it not to really beat Warren, but to expand their brand equity for other future political gains. And that's how politicians work. They don't really have fundamental principles. They don't really stand for anything. Their goal is to get elected and then to get reelected. So I'm not that reliant on them at all. We're going to win with or without the Republican Party in Massachusetts. We're going to win because ultimately I think what the Trump election showed is these parties mean little anymore. What matters is the people.